Thursday, May 23rd, it is 6:01 and we have quorum, so I would love to call us to order. And before we go on to public comment and get into our formal agenda, I would like to thank and recognize Christine Landwell for her service at SAU 39, Amherst, and the Mount Vernon communities. Christine has been an integral part of every decision and initiative here at SAU 39 for 12 years. She has developed meaningful relationships with teachers, administrators, and board members. She has tirelessly devoted an incredible amount of effort and dedication to ensuring the teachers have the best resources and the students have the best possible experience. While we're sad to see her go, we're excited for her and the Chester community. We know she will take what she has learned here to support another school's success. Chester Academic is incredibly fortunate. Christine, best of luck and thank you for done. I would also like to publicly thank Director of Student Services, Meg Beauchamp. Meg has had an incredibly impactful tenure here at SAU 39. She's advocated passionately for all students and implemented programs that improve services for complex learners, all with special attention toward fiscal responsibility. She has cared deeply for students and families, and she has made a difference. We're incredibly thankful for her vision and accomplishments, and we wish her all the best in her retirement. So with that said, we'll begin the evening with public comment 1 of 2. Oh, okay, let's get Sunny in then. Ms. Daniel, could you just let us know that you are alone and it was not possible for you to be here with us tonight?
I am alone and it was not possible to be there tonight, and I'm starting to miss you guys.
All right, and is there anyone else online that might like to join in public comment?
I think we're good.
So let's move right along. Second here. Okay, we'll begin with the consent agenda. And so I'll just go item by item to see if anyone would like something pulled from the consent agenda. Unanticipated revenue of $400. Draft minutes from September 22nd, 2022. Draft minutes from April 30th, 2024. Okay, let's go ahead and vote on items 1 and 3, as it doesn't seem like there's anything to discuss. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, so
Second.
Mr. O'Keefe has moved and Mr. Gothier has seconded. Any discussion? Items 1 or 3 of the consent agenda? All in favor? Roll call. Thank you, sir. We'll start with you, Ms. Daniels.
Daniels, yes.
And we'll start down here.
Amber. Yes.
Glover, yes.
Yes. Peters, yes.
Gothier, yes. Keith, yes.
Tim, yes.
Fritz, yes. White, yes.
All right, and item number 2, the September 22nd draft minutes from 2022. We'll start with Mr. Glover.
Thanks. So I appreciate the grace to have time to look this thing over. It's the meeting and there's rich discussion, and rather than put together a huge transcript, I offer the following amendment to put in the written minutes, what I think is kind of maybe the essence of what's missing. And it follows line 262. Currently reads. Ms. Grun, noted that she has an SHS utilization report. I'd like to add the following. Mr. Bayou presented a 14-page PowerPoint deck showing, according to the 2010 Gale report, Sohegan campus has the capacity to educate approximately 1,220 students when limiting the class size to a maximum of 20 students and excluding certain other educational and staff spaces. The deck concluded with the following three options to consider. 1, leave Sauhegan as is. 2, move 8th grade to Sauhegan. And 3, move 7th and 8th grade to Sauhegan. According to the video recording of this meeting, discussion ensued and included comments summarized in the remainder of this minutes section 8.
And do you have a motion?
I move to amend the minutes with my close amendment.
Discussion, or sorry, not discussion, is there a second? Second discussion. Okay, and so the motion is to amend the minutes with the portion just read by Mr. Glover. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
I object. I don't agree with that. Being added into the minutes from 2022. Too much time has elapsed. I think the content in which you are referencing has been brought up in multiple meetings since then. I can't go back and verify that. I would hope that you would have brought that to the chair so we could then interpret whether or not that is exactly what occurred or what not have occurred. So I am not in favor of actually amending these amendments from 2022.
If your objection's on the time, it seems like the same would apply to the minutes as unamended. So I don't, that doesn't really legit objection at all. You can verify what happened, not now because of time, but Mr. Glover referenced the video. He used the video as part of his minutes, so it is absolutely verifiable. If you want to verify, you will be able to do that. And I don't understand the timing issue either.
Just make the comment that I appreciate some of the amendments, because there was more to it than just, as they just utilization report, so at least it explains at least. Sure.
I'll admit that I'm more visual, and so not being able to read it myself is difficult to just hear it and then go, oh, yeah, that sounds great. Normally, when we want amendments, we submit them in writing. So, yeah, I mean. So I guess that would be my recommendation is that if you could maybe email it to the broader board for us all to get, a minute to process. And then I feel a lot more comfortable one way or the other saying, yeah, that sounds appropriate. That's just my recommendation. That's how we've normally dealt with it when we've.
And just just 2 notes, not in my necessarily chair hat. Well, I guess one is, that we did receive, about a week ago on the 15th, a note from Chelsea asking if there was anything that needed to go into the packet for our review. Mr. Glover and I received, and I don't know if he did not get that email or not. It was on May 15th. Hoping to be able to provide it for everyone to look at ahead of time.
I read my board notes in my packet.
My other personal note is that was, that meeting that was not able to be heard if you were out and I was not here. So it's my intent to abstain from voting on these minutes at all. So I don't know, those of you who were not part of the board, you all will have to think through.
Can I ask what we're trying to accomplish by including these in the minutes?
Sure. There wasn't much credence, if any, given to what that presentation was about. And a very rich discussion ensued after that presentation. There was too onerous and maybe not necessary to do like a translation of everybody's comments on there. The video can sort of speak for itself. So in an effort to not overwhelm the zone with all of this new lines everywhere, I tried to capture the essence of what the presentation was about, and then let the discussion that ensued thereafter live on its own. And so that was, to me, what was key. It seemed quite a rich discussion. And so I think the minutes should at least give some fair credence to the spirit of what was being discussed, so that the people who look at these, and we know some in our community do, that they'll get a sense of what the heck we were talking about. Yeah. Yes, I did receive the email. Apologies for overlooking.
If there isn't any further discussion, I think we'll just go ahead and vote. So the vote right now, Ms. Daniels, you guys know that?
Well, the only thing is if people would like to read it first, because I know that's the first I heard it. I haven't read it or heard it, so it's hard to say, am I good with all of it? I like the essence of it, but I need to understand it. I would rather be able to read it before I vote. That's where I'm at. I'm like Terry.
Yeah, I mean, like, we just push it to next.
This is terrible to say, but
Would someone like to amend Mr. Glover's motion or? It sounds as though two of you are asking for this to be moved to our meeting.
I guess, is that our next?
So the point of order is you gotta vote the motion up or down.
Okay. Yeah, we can't really add that motion to that degree. Okay, so we're going to vote on Mr. Glover's motion. And then we will still entertain one regarding the future state of this amendment. So for tonight, the motion right now is, shall we amend the meeting minutes from September 22nd of 2022 with the verbiage that Mr. Glover just read out into this meeting? And I will start with you, Ms. Daniels.
Daniels abstain.
No.
Glover, yes.
Peters abstain.
Gothier, no.
People. Yeah. Slow down. We have to acknowledge an abstention differently than we do, so we're working at it. So Amber
are you doing it as a weighted vote?
we're doing as representative vote. Because that's what we do unless there's a
I
specific
was about to
vote.
say, I was like,
But it does, abstain does impact.
Does it change in terms of the abstentions because they weren't on the board at that time? Does that change any factors? It still just counts as,
No, Amber abstain, Blackoff, no,
Yes.
Glover, yes,
Right.
no,
Front, no,
No.
Peters
Peter
abstain.
abstain, Gothier, no,
Gothier, no.
O'Keefe, no, Beam,
If I say no, could I do a separate that said,
we're gonna do a motion.
okay,
We're gonna do it.
so beam no.
Chris is saying.
Wait.
I will email it to you and now.
Well, that's.
So we have time.
I think
Or
the
we'll
whole,
see.
the whole board.
If you want to just respond to that, you then just.
Daniels,
Everyone.
No, we're good.
Got it.
I would like to proceed.
Okay,
I would think vote separately that you vote yes, no, or abstain.
Yeah.
If there any other option like a present that's allowed, say that, whether does abstain mean that there's no quorum, like if the entire Amherst School Board abstained from something, would that mean that the board was unpresent, or it means that we were here and we abstained, it's different than a yes or a no?
So abstain means you were here but not voted.
Got it, thank you, it's like present, okay, thank you.
I believe that motion has failed.
Yes.
Thank you. And now we will entertain a motion if Ms. Grund or Ms. Dean desires.
So I would like to make a motion to accept the minutes as written. And put an addendum on tonight's meeting that one of our members wants a certain thought process about a meeting from 2022 added to the official record. I think that's probably a more appropriate reflection of what we're trying to accomplish. And then we can move on.
So there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Here has seconded the motion. All right, Mr. Prince.
I'll make a note that there's a member that wants to accept minutes for a meeting that he just previously mentioned is too long ago to recall the accuracy of that meeting.
Other discussion? Yes, Ms. Grund.
My concern is that just saying there was an SHS utilization report does not say anything what it was about, any piece of discussion. I'd like to read that, to see if it at least says what the utilization report's about. So I think it's at least fair for us to read before it.
I like the thought that it's saying that because it's coming from a single member and their interpretation of it. For all intents and purposes, I mean, it is your summary, so it's your interpretation. I think that that's a fair characterization of it, and it would help us to have it on the record still. And for anybody who's looking for that, so I'm comfortable with having it in, so long as it's categorized as such.
But if it's one person's categorization, is that a fair summary of the, is that a fair categorization of minutes? I mean, that's one person's interpretation, I mean, I might have entirely
It
different.
wasn't adding to minutes, it's adding as an addendum saying that this was an addition
Oh,
reflected
there were
by,
Steve's minutes, sorry.
yeah. So I think that that's a fair categorization of it. And I would let us move on, so I'm okay with that, if it doesn't require the rest of us to sign off on agreeing with it one way or the other. You know what I'm saying? Like, it agrees that he's able to have his opinions of what he, characterizing it. Unless he's happy to wait and let us all process it. I mean, I'm good either way, but I feel like it's a fair way if we wanted to deal with it.
Good. So, yeah. I don't know if I want to say that when we have minutes, it's a personal characterization of the minutes. I think there was a lot in that meeting that was said, that because it's so difficult to hear that meeting and understand it, that I think it's fair to put at least a summary of what the utilization report is about. And I think leaving that out does not characterize what the meeting, that part of the meeting. So I think it's fair to just read it and understand what was said regarding.
I would just say that, there's no interpretation. It's a couple of key slides, some from the summary slides from the slide deck. And the recognition that the discussion about the topic ensued. So it's not an interpretation. The utilization report exists. Says what it says. Says other things too. Okay. It didn't just put 14 pages in there. This is, small insert to provide the context for a minute reader to appreciate in the timeline of the meeting and certain things happen. As opposed to getting to the end of the minutes or end of somewhere and having some addendum now that is out of context is difficult for a minute reader.
So in terms of the minutes that are currently in there, you want to put this summary in there for what the slide deck says. Is the rest of the conversation ensued, is that already in the minutes? Or do we need to go back and add the conversation that ensued because there's going to be context and interpretation of this report, plus other stuff that you just said is not in there. So you're still going through and summarizing it from one person's point of view, which essentially is potentially a cherry-picked batch of information that's in there. It may have also said that Sauhegan has leaking toilets in every building, but that may have been left out because we don't want to cover the bad stuff. I mean, using an exaggerated example in the utilization report. So there may have been other examples that you didn't agree with or that you didn't like, and you could have just left those out. And I'm not saying you, but a person could have. So I don't understand if we're going to add this in there, we need to add in the entire utilization report or have somebody different, not one board member more board members summarize it, or we have to summarize all of the ensuing conversation like we have that's currently in the minutes already, because it looks like we start to touch on some of that stuff. So to me, it's all or nothing. I don't know if one person can adequately do this where it represents the minutes that everybody else interprets the same way. We spent a lot of time on this.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I can't have it. My fault.
I believe any of us can sit in the chair and make a statement during public comment, and this is one of those. Minutes already exist. I don't feel there's any reason to be editable.
They don't.
Oh, they
No,
don't?
we've not adopted minutes yet.
End of the report.
Well,
When?
just so last month,
2022, September.
just a quick, last month, we realized that for some reason these minutes had never been adopted. We brought them forward to be adopted. Some members thought maybe some information from that evening wasn't represented in the minutes. So we were to receive that verbiage and see if we wanted to amend the minutes as presented last month to be accepted. So
They weren't. I don't-
they were not accepted last. we deferred it to this.
Okay, they were in the package.
They were in-
So I apologize.
Yes. Yeah, they were in the last one's packet. So, I don't know that we're gonna come up with any new thoughts. The motion right now is if you would like to have this added as an addendum, then you would vote yes on this motion. If you would like the opportunity to read this verbiage and consider it for actual introduction into the minutes next time, then you would vote no on this motion. Everyone understand what
So
we're
just to
voting on?
clarify, the motion on the table is to approve the minutes as written, allowing the member present tonight that wants to add some additional content would be added in tonight's minutes, saying that he wanted to have this information added to the minutes from 2022.
So this addendum would not be to the 2022 minutes, it would be
That's
to
correct.
tonight's.
So we're not amending the 2022 minutes, we're leaving them as written. And then we're putting Mr. Glover's comments tonight on tonight's minutes, so people reading tonight's minutes can go back and watch the video if they're concerned about Mr. Glover's comments.
All right, so if you vote yes right now, you're voting to accept the minutes as written. Did we not just?
Plus
Plus the minutes, yeah.
Plus adding his comments to the
tonight's
minutes.
minutes.
Voted on that.
So he gets his information into the record.
Okay, so one more time around. Ms. Daniels,
Daniels, no.
Ms. Daniels is voting no, that we're not going to just accept those minutes. Sorry, I'm trying to be really clear so everybody knows what they're voting.
It's not.
A no is
Minutes would be.
exactly, a no is you want to give the opportunity to consider the amendment. Maybe you just want to vote no. It never happens.
So I'm clear, no is I want the opportunity to like read over it. Right.
The opportunity to have that motion entertained. Right now, no
Oh.
just means we're minutes tonight, right now.
I'd like to change my vote.
Well, that would be fine since we haven't gotten any further than you. So, Ms. Like to vote yes?
Yeah.
Sorry, all right.
You
Ms.
asked where
Graham.
the vote is again? You asked where the vote is? I don't hear her say yes.
Ms. Daniels, could you clearly loudly say your vote?
Daniels, yes.
Mr. Amber?
Amber, saying.
Eckhoff, no.
Glover, no.
No,
Yes.
Peter's abstaining still.
Amber, abstaining. Gothier, yes.
O'Keefe, yes.
Yes.
Beam, no.
Abstain. Beam, no. Abstain.
Well, yes.
Everybody?
That is everyone.
Bam.
So now we will entertain the motion from Ms. Grund.
The table.
Oh,
Yeah, motion. is-
motion to table.
no, on the table. Yeah,
I'll second that.
Do we need any discussion? Ms. Daniels, we have a motion to table these minutes.
Yes. Daniels, yes.
Amber's abstaining, yeah.
Eckhoff, yes.
Glover, yes.
Well, hold on. Echo, yes. But yes.
right, yes.
I'm interested. Oh. Okay. Right.
Peters is still abstaining.
Peter's abstaining. Everybody? Gothier, no.
O'Keefe, no.
Yes.
Fritz, yes.
Wait, sorry, O'Keefe, no.
Beam,
Beam, yes.
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 White, yes.
Fritz is a yes, and White is a yes. Is that good?
That's
Pass.
everyone.
Pass.
Okay,
So they're tabled.
so that will be, Mr. Glover, if you could immediately, as soon as you get home and have servant,
I don't have, yes.
send that to,
Not getting connection.
can you respond to the email to Chelsea? Yep. There should be an email from May 15th that I think you found now, so you can respond to that and we can have that in the packet. All right, so we're moving on to reports received. Seeing no burning hands or questions, let's hear from Superintendent Mike Berry for his report.
In the packet, you should all have received the superintendent's report. Before I kind of like field any questions or talk about any highlights, I want to let everyone know I appreciate the productivity of all the boards this year and this SAU board. I appreciate the partnership, appreciate the support. As I reflect on the year, I appreciate the way we were able to get things kind of moving forward and continue the good work that's been happening in SU 39. So in this report, you know, to kind of stay consistent, talk a little bit about some of the leadership development and some of the conversations that we're having, talked a little bit about staffing, have some thoughts around, you know, the reflecting on the year. Hopefully people took a moment or two to read those. Those are, you know, pretty authentic and, you know, for me, encapsulate the work of the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the assistant superintendent and the BA, and then some of the other senior leadership members. And it's a complicated district. And so you kind of complicated SAU, you kind of see highlights of all the different things that we're doing. So, there's the report. Take any questions from anybody. Thanks.
Good.
All right, let's move to our board chairs, starting with Mr. Eckhoff.
Thank you. Quick update. We had a meeting last Wednesday, May 15th, preceded by a building committee meeting. We had the Harriman firm in, two representatives. Got their name, but they're kind of a top line overview of where they're headed and where they're headed. They presented I won't say aggressive timeline. We questioned the timeline, but we were kind of like, they assured us that they could make the deadline. It was well done and the presentation was well done. Again, very top line. Next steps for us and the committee are to visit some schools that are similar in nature, K through 8. We'll look at academics, and Steve can speak to it better than I, but academic expectations and what parameters we're going to need to be at full speed with K8. Also look at buildings. So it's not just about building structure, it's about what is transpiring inside. So we're going to spread that amongst various members, but I think Steve and Tom can pretty much spearhead that initiative. Want to tag in on any of it?
No, I appreciate it. Just for this board's edification, there's 3 goals. One is just take a look at preschool. Preschool in-house look like in Mount Vernon. We also, Harriman took an extensive look at the enrollment through NESDEC. And looks like another 2 additional classrooms would be necessary for in about 5 years. The expected in 5 years is an important piece because those are the numbers that are already here. We're actually projecting from kids we know are here. And then the last one is the 7-8, you know, the book 7-8 look like. And they're looking at it in October. The Mount Vernon board should receive a report from Harriman about a cost for those 3 options sometime in October. So going to the next budget season, we hope to have some costing about those 3 options.
So it's good. Our last day at Mount Vernon will be Thursday, June 13th. And the last piece of this, we're not having a meeting next month. We'll be having my first retreat, I guess, and the board will retreat on July 17th. doesn't matter. July 17th, we'll retreat. And biggest thing that I think we did last week, and we're excited and pleased, is that we voted and approved a contract extension for our principal, Tom Lecklider, through 2027. And the entire board is absolutely thrilled with the performance on the Hill, and Tom is engaged. You can look at his report in this deck as well. He really, and the school and the staff and the kids are all fire. So we're incredibly pleased that we were able to extend Tom for 2 years to 2027. So that is my report.
You got there?
Yes, thank you. So we met last week. I was not able to make the meeting, but Ms. Gascoigne chaired for us instead. So we had our initial discussion on board goals. More work to be done on that as we get ready for our June meeting. We continue to work on our facilities planning. We appointed new members to the Building and Grounds Committee. We are also commissioning a survey to send to voters again following this year's election. That should go out in the next week or two. Other items were, we had a grading reporting presentation by Principal Kristen Gothier. We voted to increase co-curricular stipends for teachers that are offering those clubs and co-curricular activities for students after school. We did also extend the contracts for all three of our principals, Kristen Gothier, Dr. Murphy, and Ms. Perrell. We had a very brief discussion on the start time, continuing to look ways to, address some of the issues that popped up. Terry, you had a note of that, just requested we continue to look at those ways. Anything you want to add to that particular piece quickly?
No, I think it's just, this could be part of what we do over our summer work.
Thank you. And then the other one was we had our unassigned fund balance. We had an update on that, but no action taken. We will certainly hear more about that in June and start making decisions at that point. We also authorized revisions to the Brick School lease agreement, which we'll talk about later tonight.
So Egan, last week we had a presentation by Andrew Tyler, who is the new computer science teacher, and he's dynamic. Very excited about some of the excitement he's bringing to the classroom and improvements to some of the programming, and excitement to start working and pairing with Amherst as well. So this is great. We discussed the junior leadership project. We discussed our board goals. AP tests are completed. The kids are breathing a sigh of relief. Tonight is the Junior Book Awards downstairs, so if you see a lot of cards around, that's why. It's very exciting for our juniors to receive some recognition tonight. Our senior award night is June 3rd, and that's where the students get recognized as seniors who are graduating, as well as receive many, many scholarships. And right now going on are our senior project presentations. So if anyone has time tomorrow, there's a whole list of them. There's outside the wall. There's everything from, Maeve Allen today, I was there, Alexander's disease. She did a phenomenal presentation, and about a charity raise. She raised over $12,000 for this program. So congratulations to her. There's travel vlogs, how music can be used as a tool for mental health. How can a hydroponic system used to sustain produce in a home setting? You name it, it's out there, and these kids are doing fantastic. Last thing is graduation, June 14th. It'll be a big day here, so excited.
Great. Then we will move into an update on the bank conversion completion.
Thank you. So this is, it's been a little while in the making, but we're very excited that we completed most of what we need to do to convert to a new bank. TD, we've made the decision to make this change last year. The board had a memo actually a year ago on this, with the reasons why. So this is just an update to let you know that that has happened. We did payroll today, and we've done all 4 districts with accounts payable as of today. So we're very pleased. It was a lot of work. TD did live up to the expectation with their customer service. There's some nice administrative efficiencies and features that the staff is really pleased with. So far, so good.
Any questions for Ms. Stacy?
Less than a question, more of a comment. I want to thank you for once again doing training as we had new people coming on to signing things and just the professionalism with which you approach everything. And the whole team, I know that we're lucky that it's complex, the way things have to go in that office. And throwing in something like this, where you're having to do a wholesale change to your systems is a heavy lift. And so I just want to give a thanks to all of the hard work that went behind this. You make it sound easy, but I know it was not easy.
Thank you. The staff did really well and we're all pleased. We roamed and mowed a little bit when we were getting ready to do it, but we're pleased we did it. So.
And we will move on to the brick school lease revision.
Terry, did you want to give an?
I think you did a great job explaining it last time at our meeting.
Okay, sure. So, so the part of the brick school improvement committee, we resurrected that committee, at the advice of the auditors and, had to make some changes to the fund balance and how that was classified. We've gone through that, the board voted on that already, but the language was not, codified anywhere. So one of the goals of the committee was to reopen the lease, to put that language back into the lease. So both to establish the committee to have some language around classifying the unassigned fund balance as, the reserve account, is either assigned or unassigned. And then to establish a limit as far as what that reserve account would be maintained at. And to, let's see, what else? Those are the main items. We also added back this language on emergency repairs, which was in the previous agreement. So this basically says that if there are repairs that need to be made, then we would try to cover that from the operating budget and the reserve. If that was exhausted, then that would be basically a reduction in the revenue that you see when we present the SAU budget. So the SAU budget has revenue from prior years unassigned fund balance. So that would be a reduction amount. So it's not an additional, it is an additional expense that basically offsets that revenue, which is an advantage to all the districts in the apportionment. So, but that's only in the event of an emergency repair. And that would be presented to the brick school improvement committee to oversee those and then bring things forward to the SAU board as needed.
It's. I think where I got hung up on this is that it's saying that the improvements are to be authorized by the committee and that the committee, yes, that it says in 3 places. And seems to me that the committee would meet, learn about improvements and the costs, and then present to the SAU board, who would then discuss and approve. But the approval would be at this table, not at the conference table with a few people present to make a decision. My view of committees is they gather information, they facilitate bringing the information to the decision-making body, which is us, and not the committee itself.
So the decision-making body is really the Amherst board. That's the entity that owns the building. So, and it's leased to the SAU board. So the SAU board doesn't have ownership of the brick school. So the idea is that, the other thing I didn't mention is that the improvements are tied to the capital improvements plan, as well. So as a living, breathing document. So that that document is.
But, okay, I understand that
Yeah.
Amherst owns the property and the building.
Yep.
Okay, but the rest of, all three school districts together pay for its upkeep and maintenance, is why we have an obligation in the lease to do that.
Mhm.
And that all makes perfect sense, I'm not disputing that, but it's, the way it's written, it's saying that the committee was going to make the decisions. I just don't think that's appropriate for committees to be empowered to make decisions. I think that's an inappropriate delegation of our authority. I think the committees should do their good work. Present their findings, recommendations if they want. And be subject to questioning, and then the board itself as a body approves the expenditure. That's the way I would like to see the language written, but otherwise, sounds good. Makes sense to have a plan, makes sense to have a committee, makes sense to have some provisions for the reserve account, to make sure you're safe, and it makes, as much as I hope there's not an emergency, and if there is, I hope insurance pays for it, but, we're basically promising to make up the difference if there's no money in the reserve account. Okay. I'm okay with all that. I want to hang up is who's making the decisions. I think it should be the board itself, not the committee.
So that would not be my decision. Be up to the boards to discuss that.
Well, and then
Well, again, wouldn't it be up to the Amherst board, because it's still our purview right now, so we would have to vote to expand the decision-making bodies.
you are the lessor.
Correct.
So you can agree as a lessor that the brick improvement committee makes the decision. We are sort of on the team of the lessee, which we're all sitting together. So you're lesser and
Well,
lessor.
every board has representation on this committee. There's
It
one member
does.
from each board, and then Amherst has a secondary one as the lessor to it.
So Mr. Glover would have, and the rest of our board that is not Amherst would have really no say over whether or not you accept a revision to be made to your building. Potentially, maybe what he's saying is that we would be able to say as a lessee, whether we want the brick committee to agree to make the withdrawals of funds on our behalf. I have no problem with it. I was just trying to detangle who is who.
Could just provide a methodical. I mean, you can imagine there's certain things in the CIP. Maybe certain things get extended life. Maybe there's not, maybe there's some fear on one side that we should replace this now. Maybe others are thinking, well, actually, maybe we need to defer that. So there's some other thing that's sucking resources away. So there could be a disagreement about when to spend the money and how much to spend on any given improvement or maintenance. And it's our obligation to spend the money as the lessee together. So long as we make sure that the thing is well kept, I guess. So there could be times and circumstances where the recommendation of the committee or the committee members think that we should pull the trigger now, and maybe this board might think that, no, actually, maybe we need to wait a year because something else is happening. So, and particularly because it's taxpayer money, I have really delegating that authority to a committee.
So what do we do if Amherst School District wants to sell the building? Do we need to come to the SAU board for that too? Can this committee decide to sell it? Does that?
That's not maintenance, that's something to.
But it's still, we are the lessor, we are the owners of the building. Any apartment complex doesn't take a poll of members in that complex of what they want to do. They just decide we need to update cabinets in 7 units this year, and they just go update cabinets in that unit.
But that would be if the
Okay.
lessor was supplying the cabinets versus the lessee.
Yeah, the
I have-
owner replaces the roof, the tenants don't.
Go
A
ahead,
little
Mr.
different.
Right. So I think, like Tom said, this is a normal, contract. The tenants can agree not to sign the lease, right? You can negotiate this kind of stuff, it seems. I mean, I don't know if we can do it real time because we're not having an Amherst board meeting right now, so I don't know.
The Amherst board has to meet to discuss
Right.
this. If we want to expand the purview of who can make decisions. So it's nothing we can do today. We have to
Right.
talk about it June 18th, as soon as we can do this. And then we have to bring it back in August, which means that does the lease expire in
No.
It's just modified.
We opened it.
3-year lease, it's a long-term lease.
But also
But they
if
could break
we-
the lease without, this is separate, Tom, they could they can either everybody can break the lease under other provisions as well. So it's not like, you know, we can do anything we want with this property. And I think what John's talking about is it's just flat out inappropriate to delegate spending authority to an unelected body. And
They are elected because they're all members of the SAU. Each
But that
board
body's not
can
elected.
have it.
And I think
Can we
that's.
just, I don't, we have to do it a vote, but we just move this to the Amherst meeting, because that's the only thing that we're gonna be able to do, is we
Well,
have to
no,
start there.
We can't do that. Hey, well, I would not prefer we do that just yet.
Okay.
May I speak before you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Just so for one thing to be clear, if we changed something tonight, this board could vote that this is what we want to bring back. And if you agree to it, your next meeting, we're done. We don't have to stop bringing it back to this board again.
Fair.
So just so you know, we wouldn't
That's fair.
push this out to August. Also, I don't know that we have time in these meetings to be responsible for every maintenance item that might come up in a brick school building. So if we were going to move forward with something like that, I would recommend a dollar amount. If there is a repair over some very large amount that we be requesting the brick school to give us a recommendation unless it's an emergency, that's the only place I'd be comfortable, because I don't think we have time to run maintenance as a 17-person body on one building.
So kind of going exactly what I was thinking is in here, it says funds shall be capped in amount equal to the total of unfinished projects in $50,000, which is great, which means we're already capping what we're going to allow them to spend for this committee. So I don't think it needs to be brought back to the SAU board if it's under this 50,000. I would say if there's a concern of an emergency, I would hope that would come to the SAU and just say, are we okay going forward? I would say we already capped it at 50. We're already giving authorization to spend up to that. But the emergency is the only thing I would say, just let us know, and maybe that creates a vote. That's,
So with
So
that,
it
do you
creates
want to
a
call a
vote in an
question?
emergency meeting to do all that too. So if there's anything of any expediency, then it's just gonna slow the process down, but.
but
It wouldn't, I don't think we're recommending changing anything. If there's an emergency, obviously. we have
we
to-
would you let us know, we decide on whether, without the, my only point of discussion is, would that create a vote requirement? But we're already authorizing up to 50,000 here for the
Let's
budget.
just clarify that. It's the greater of $50,000 or the total of the unfinished projects in the CIP. It could be $500,000 worth of projects in that CIP. That would be then the greater of 50,000 or the sum total of all the projects remaining. So it's not
And that's
a
gonna,
ceiling,
that's
it's a
gonna-
floor.
that's gonna
50,000 is
show
a
up in
floor.
the SAU budget, which we're gonna,
Right, so we would have already approved the budget.
if that's sure, it's gonna show up in the SAU.
I think that, is there any more need for clarification here on this lease?
Well, I could say that as a member of this committee this year, that really our intent was that every year we were having to go back and reclassify and do extra votes and do things. And we said, listen, it really should be codified that this is how that process functions. And so it really was just trying to add clarity to the process. And I wasn't there on the committee when the language went out. And so we were just adding some language back in and trying to tie up kind of a loose end. There is already, I mean, the representation is, if there's something coming up, my hope would be that the representative on the committee would come back to their board and say, hey, there's this project going on and I would like your thoughts on it, because they are able to vote on it. And like right now, we're looking at the next big project would be putting a ramp in for ADA accessibility on the first floor. And that's going to take a couple of years to save up enough to be able to do. So we've already started costing that out and doing that. I mean, I don't think that's anything that anyone on the broader board would go, no, that's a horrible idea to be legally, compliant and have the ability for the public to come. And so we are very aware of our responsibilities, and there is representation, and there is the ability for the representatives to go to their boards with any concerns and any discussions. And believe me, it's a very,
Well, that would require
It does.
us to have full attendance in the committee, and I am no less guilty for having to miss meetings because of work. We haven't had that yet either, Terry. The last time you and I were there.
yeah, but the one before that, the one that actually went before that, there was a lively conversation. So, I mean, it's, I can't force people to show up, but
So I'm realizing now that we're fully in discussion on a motion that we don't have on the floor. Would someone like to put it there?
What would the motion be to accept as is and put it back to the Amherst board?
I don't think we, if
Well, it's not
you
a-
voted to take it, you're good, right?
Uh,
Did you already vote on this, please? Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so if we vote
Yes.
to accept it tonight, we're done, right?
we're done. I'd like to make a motion to accept this.
Okay, made by Mr. Stokinger, is there a second? Mr. Eckhoff? Is there any further discussion? Particularly in the-
Yes, one piece of clarification. These sections are not about maintenance. This is about alterations, additions, and improvements per the CIP. It's different from maintenance. So maintenance is expected as a routine matter, does not, it would be like a facilities report. We're already getting these from Rob. That's fine. Please keep doing that. Doing a great job. This is about the ramp or I don't know what else in the future. So it's different, not just maintenance. To your point, it's a little bit different. than just maintenance. And I would like to have some visibility about that before making decisions and spending money.
Mr. Eckhoff?
I just like to point out the obvious. I mean, on this particular committee, there's going to be one representative from Mount Vernon, one from Samhegan, and two from Amherst. And so if Amherst wants to build something and Mount Vernon and Samhegan say no, there's a tie and nothing happens. So I think there's a lot of protection for the taxpayer because it gives an equal weighting between Samhegan and Mount Vernon to then jointly object to a particular project that may be coming up. In terms of funding, we're going to fund this on a yearly basis with $50,000, making that number up. But like that should go with the expectation that a CIP plan has been developed and that's being presented to the actual full board for us to then approve those dollars towards the project. And then last, when we take a look at sort of the approval of, hey, let's finish the ramp, because that's the number one complaint I hear about that building. People can't access it, especially up at Mount Vernon. Like, we don't need the 17 people here to approve something that's been built up because we've approved it over the course of 3 or 4 or 5 years to add stuff to this capital reserve fund as a part of the SAU board, as a part of our budgetary process. It's been washed through the budgetary process through a budget committee and then through public hearings, and then us going and talking about it. I'm highly confident that we're doing the right thing, and I'm very comfortable with everything that's right.
Mr. Fritz?
I have a question about this committee that we talked about, the safety committee. Is there a requirement for quorum of all the members that Mr. O'Keefe is referring to, or is it the case that, like I think Tom mentioned, maybe there was only one board representative at one particular meeting? Therefore, it could be the bias that I think Mr. O'Keefe is more would not have.
I wouldn't vote.
Yeah,
So there's no vote.
Okay, so if they were to spend money on this committee, it would have to have, what is the quorum exactly? Is it of the total members or is it of each board? So that Mr. O'Keefe's, I mean, I like your argument and I want to support what you're saying, but I want to ensure that there will be some of each board represented required as a quorum sort of requirement to make the vote, spend money.
So, I mean, just to add into that, Mr. Fritz, I mean, when we take a look at the relationship that our 3 boards have, a certain component of that has to be built in trust. And I'm going to use this as an example because it happened way before every single person's time here, where one board tried to push forward a rather expensive item and the Samhegan and the Mount Vernon boards both exited out of the meeting. Quorum was lost and the motion failed at that particular point. I hope we never see that day ever again. Because it just showed dysfunction in this particular body. But anything that's going to come up from an expense standpoint should be clearly warned to the membership of that committee. Samhegan should absolutely know for its representative what's going to be on the agenda. Should be hyper aware of the things that we're going to be asked, and the business officer already does a great job of that anyway. So I really don't think we need to overthink this. I think the trust is there from my perspective, and I think at least as written is a pretty solid document that protects actually all the parties.
Go back to Mr. Fritz. I would like to say that it's my intent to vote to accept the lease because as Ms. Casey and Ms. King both have alluded to, this is codifying the way that this has been operating, and we have not been aware of problems. You know, it's not, I don't want to give this board more work to solve a problem that we don't have. That's just my personal thought, and Mr. Fritz.
I just wanted to answer my original question about will every board be required to be there? And I think I appreciate your comments on trust, but I also think we're talking about bodies such as these and, you know, politics in general. We need to have an angle of distrust. We need to have the ability to verify what is being said is true. And you gave a good example of why we should have distrust in our fellow board members of, you know, our processes need to be, held to keep the fact that people can be dishonorable at bay, right? So that's why we have, I think, these complicated rules, complicated body discussions, because we don't just trust somebody or someone to spend all their money wisely. So, but I'd like to answer my question on what would be the requirements for a forum for voting in terms of how do you determine, is it by total membership, 51%, or is it at least a member of each board representative for the vote?
I'm not sure that's outlined anywhere.
Typically, a quorum is a majority of the appointed.
So if there are 4 people
Okay,
on the committee,
thank
then 3 would need to be there. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, thank you.
And just that point from the document, Mr. Fritz, you know, section 18 and section 19 both reference the resolutions and disputes and disagreements and reopening the contract. So the Amherst School Board or the Sauhegan School Board or the Mount Vernon School Board can go ahead and execute either one of those sections should they feel that they're being untrustworthy or dishonest in the actual process. Thank you.
I appreciate your sentiment of why are we, we're already doing it this way, why would we fix a problem that we're not facing? Was your impression, and I would say I don't see this as very onerous. I mean, we have votes and consent agendas to approve $400 checks. We have $20 checks. We have, but every budget transfers in a consent agenda. We have high visibility on all of these transactions repeatedly. And to me, should not be any different. So that when the money is spent, we have an opportunity to see it in as real time as we can, whether we're at the meeting or not at the meeting, all of us, so that we have the awareness that we need to represent our community. So to me, this falls in line with all of those other financial transactions that are squarely on our agendas every month that we approve. These would be our consent agendas.
Not necessarily approving, but you certainly would have at your monthly board meeting, the opportunity to hear from your Brick School community representative.
But would that be before decisions are made or after decisions are made? That's my hang up.
The SAU board doesn't necessarily meet every. So you could really be holding up decisions being made. I mean, I'm willing to put some, you know, like, there is a floor. I would say there is a, you know, there's $50,000 in there. Yes, it's a floor. I would say that there is a plan. Roger's been fantastic putting together CIP plans for us. That items go into a budget for us. If there's, the only thing that's really standing out that could be the concern is if there is an emergency. Now, if there's an emergency, then hopefully we will be aware of that as quick as possible. And that's where the money would exceed the $50,000, because otherwise we're probably putting money into a budget based on the CIP budget. I don't think they're gonna willy-nilly find, you know, throw money in $120,000. We don't have it in the SAU budget unless it's approved. And then so it's an emergency issue. So if there's an SAU budget, there's a CIP plan, I'm willing to give the CIP committee the ability to go ahead and implement that plan. And if there are emergencies, that's a thing we get to know. Outside, that's a thing that we would have to be aware of.
So right now, the only motion on the table is to accept this lease up or down.
Yeah.
Is there anything else here? If not, I think we should go ahead and vote. Starting with Ms. Daniels.
Daniels, yes.
Yes, it's too slow for me. You like yeses though.
Lover, no.
What? Thank you.
Run, yes.
Stover, yes.
Peter, yes.
Thank you. Yeses are good. I put every yes in it.
Gother, yes.
O'Keefe's.
Yes.
Beam, yes.
Fritz, yes.
White, yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
It's like you get a touchdown every time. I love it.
Had a good discussion, thank you. We have on the agenda that the board will discuss start and end times. I know Sauhegan has not had an opportunity to discuss anything further since this last meeting. Is there a desire to discuss start and end times here today? Yes, we have a desire.
So based on having the privilege to sit at the different meetings of the three boards, then sitting at this meeting with you all last month. And doing, you know, the research and and gathering all the information that people received. I really think that, you know, there's not a whole lot of conversation for the 24-25 school year. I don't think there's room, there's appetite to discuss it. We're not in a position to do anything different. We heard that pretty loud and clear, but something that became, you know, kind of worth looking into, and I would like to look into this, and there's in the board notes, is we'd like to, you know, continue a conversation and a project with Butlers where we ask them to provide a quality cost estimate and approximate bus times for one universal run for SAU 39. They given us a quote. It was included into the board report. I think if we're going to have to start an end time conversation, it would be my hope that we can explore this over the summer into the fall. And if the SAU board comes back in August and wants to have future conversations, we can have this. But they can't do this work in the fall. They would have to be able to do it in the summer. So which is why we're here asking you if you have a desire to do this. Will come from FY25 funds. And they do have the ability to do this work in the summer. So before we got too far into it, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And share that, but we would like to be able to move on that. We would like to get a motion to do that. That will help the conversation from where I sit. Jason, you are as real as it gets. At the last meeting, I share some thoughts like that with you. You know, one day I walked away and I'm like, decisions like this should be 60%, you know, my casualness, right? Like, kind of like super majority because of the climate of the town and the weight of the decision and how controversial it was, because it is a 52-48. It is an elementary versus secondary ed. It is people with long bus rides versus short bus rides, right? It is all these things. And to getting to a consensus that's going to work, I just don't think we're close based on survey data and the conversations I have, but something that could really be explored. And if it's possible, then conversations on what that implementation looks like would be the work. And that's kind of where we're at. I wanted to share that and thank you for giving me the time.
Is there a cost associated with doing that work?
Yes. Outlined in the board report, it talks about by school, you can break it down by district, it's roughly $4,000. So,
And that would, if I may, that would be the bus service looking at what they could do to make it happen for us.
correct.
To create a model of a universal start time. So you get at 7:50. Another one at 7:50, yeah, about 10 minutes. We would know exactly how many buses and what the bus routes will be.
7. So wait, hold on. That's
So
so using what the start time is a different question than whether or not.
I don't want to get into that.
I know.
John, I don't want to get into that.
No, no,
I'm sorry, you're not done that. And here's this. I want one bus route for close to 8 o'clock as possible. And if it goes 7:50 at CW or 7:50 at SHS, that's not to be determined yet. But I want the schools who do this and do this well. They have like they say, we're gonna shoot for 8. We have 4 schools. And then some will be at 7:50, some will be at 8:10. I just want to explore if that's a possibility for a bus company to facilitate that. And then we can discuss. That's the information we don't. So.
That's agnostic to the time.
Yeah, it's time, to me, it's not, it's saying not 8:30, it's not 7:30, it's just one route,
Universal.
so that's it. Sorry, Stephen, you had.
Yeah, so just the only question I got is the survey results that we got back. This was an overwhelming no. So.
Yeah.
How do we go back to the community and say we're spending money on something that the community said no to in survey results? And,
Yeah.
and I'm not for or against, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to comprehend.
I'll explain my thought process, right? So right now,
I think in SAU 39, the ridership of the number of students who are riding the bus is low, right? And we are not having the ridership on the two routes that we do have. Okay, I also think it's very easy to say, you know, what ridership would look like if we, you know, or easy to assume, you know, K through 12, pre-K through 12, what that would look like if we had that route. You know, one route. People automatically say, hey, I don't want my 7th grader on a bus, or I want my 2nd grader on the bus with a 7th grader. And I understand that, right? And I get that. But there are a lot of schools and school districts that do universal routes with success, and they have it as a possibility. I think people automatically hear that and they get nervous about some of the obvious things that you could be nervous about. But for us, we would like to educate people on what that actually looks like and have case studies and evidence to show people what that actually looks like. The other piece is because of the ridership, it's been proven that people in town will choose to do what they need to do based on their family circumstances. And if that's, riding on the bus or not riding on the bus, or depending on what time the bus goes by their house, they put the kids on it. We just want to go study it to get that information, provide more information to it, because I think people automatically assume, 7th graders on the bus, with 1st graders or 9th graders on with 2nd graders, and they don't like that. But there's more to it on what it would look like in implementation. So.
It's just a follow-up. If we approve this thing, the funds, are they gonna be coming from another area of the budget that is important? Or is this surplus stuff that you're thinking about? Like, where are these dollars coming from? Because I don't want to take it away from an area that's also equally as.
I'd have to ask Amy exactly. She just stepped out for a moment. I'll get her, but she costed this out. I'm sure it's affiliated with transportation.
Yeah, it's within the transportation lines. We have to do it.
Sorry.
Before we do that, Mr. Boatright, if you're comfortable holding those thoughts for a Souhegan discussion first and then a later discussion,
thoughts?
through whichever thought first stop.
Well, first of all, I didn't bring up time. I was just distinguishing the study of feasibility versus time. Because I heard time brought in by some. Okay, so. Yeah, what I wanted to say was. Is this something that a consultant would be more appropriate to do who is independent of the bus company? So that it's has some integrity. I mean, the bus company, their interests are they to give us the best value, or is it to increase their profits? I mean, I'm not throwing them under the bus, no pun intended, but that is the nature of the relationships in business. We gotta be careful for that. So is this fodder for a third-party independent consultant to provide an opinion that maybe gathers information from the bus company, but does their own analysis?
I don't think so. I think they know our routes, they know our roads, they know if they really don't have a dog in the fight on this, except we asked them, they didn't pursue us. It would be starting from scratch with an independent person. I think it'd be far more expensive. So I think it's pretty good. We did review the bus contract about what we can get, for this, and this is considered a whole reroute, and that's why it's an additional funds.
Right.
I think I just.
Ms. Grant,
So can I make a motion so we can continue discussion?
you can make a motion. What would you like to motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the superintendent to spend about $4,000 to explore the universal start time.
I will second that.
Everyone. Every Thursday. Discussion just stuff again.
This wasn't part of our budget. This is a large expense. I think it should be thought through in our budget process in the year. And we could do this study during the summer next year. We already know we're not going to change the start times for the fall school year. So I think this is something we could go through our budget process. As opposed to
just willy-nilly spending $4,000 like we don't want to do on facilities.
Ms. Gunn?
So my thoughts, one thought I had was, how do we go back, so to Mr. O'Keefe's question about how do we go back to the public? I think some people reacted to the fact that the original cost estimate was $500,000. So I think we can go back and say, hey, we don't think that's what it is. Let's get the information so we can actually support what the cost is and then go forward with that discussion. So that's why I'm interested in exploring it. I think it would be a potential benefit, but I can't make decisions. The decision on start time where I'm at fully without also having this open piece of information. So I would love to have this. I mean, the cost to Sohegan is just around $1,000. The cost of Mount Vernon is $510. And AMS and Carpel, they bear the brunt of it, it's about $2,500, but I'm for it because I would love to have the information in order.
I saw Ms. Bean first. I was actually first I was confused why I saw it on the agenda, I'll be honest. And then when I read the notes, I said, okay, this I actually really like, because to be fair, one of the most difficult parts of looking at this topic at all has been transportation. It's what hamstrings a lot of decisions we can make. And so having more information for what is actually a pretty nominal fee per district. You know, like the largest piece of this would actually be Amherst District, but I feel like, you know, it is still worth investing in having real data. And we know that we are underutilizing some of our routes right now, so we would actually address two things at the same time and look at, do we have efficiency that could be gained? And I think that it's not a huge cost to have real data as opposed to best guesses. Because that's what we have right now, and you can't make intelligent decisions without good data. You just can't. And so I am for getting good data so we know all of our options. I saw a hand over here, Mr. Glover, and then Mr. Fritz.
I support the motion, because my read of our previous discussion was the people, board members at large, were interested in exploring all options for future decision-making guidance to help us. This is one piece of that. It's not the only piece.
Yep.
And the money isn't extraordinary. And it'll be really helpful. And the work product should be durable. I mean, once you do this route, it exists forever. So if it sits on the shelf for a year until we gather more data and we can lay all the data on the table, this will still be valid, or 2 years from now.
Not necessarily. Won't people move?
But the houses don't move. And
They don't have kids or.
I mean, the buses, the way I look at it, correct me if anyone thinks differently, the buses go to the four corners of the towns, no matter what. Because there's gonna be some kid that lives out in the middle of farthest reach away. So the route exists. Now, how many kids get on the bus? Where precisely they live? I know it used to be more like right at your driveway than it has been. Now it's more funneling them to convenient corners. So I think once the route is known, it should be fairly good for a long period of time.
Mr. Fritz?
Mike, I appreciate what you're doing here, right? I oppose this plan right now because I don't hear it being based in a vision of how this helps the school system. Okay, if we had a story, we heard objections last time from the key rhythm of this age at this time and different age different time. So if we buy that story last month, then this month we would say, well, universal time would be inappropriate because of the same argument. So I would like to hear from your team, what is the optimal situation for education? And if it doesn't make a difference, I want to know that too. But I'm not going to support this spending for the reasons that Andrew mentioned as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can put it in writing and get you a little more of a detailed report on as to why we think this is the solution and why we think this is the best practice for what SAU 39 wants to implement. I think we've had some internal conversations, listening to over the years, the feedback we got from various surveys, the conversations that we had with the principals who put themselves out there in their reports and gave you their feedback. And I think we're just trying to make it work for as many families in the 3 districts and in the 4 schools as we can. And we're offering up solutions at the end of the day, we work for you. And we're gonna continue to work to implement the decisions that you make. So they work as well as for many families and students as possible. And we think this is worth exploring, but if you guys don't think it's the time to do that, that is more than fine. We will go back and continue to work within the structures that we have. And at the end of the day, that's where we're at. You know, we're just gonna continue to work. So, and there's some other things we have going for the 24-25 year. But this before thinking a little bit more further out, if there's gonna be any changes for 25-26, if we need any more information to add to the information that you received last month. So we'll just continue to plug fair questions and go from there.
I'd just like to add that for other districts that have successfully gone to different times, it actually is a preferred choice to go to universal. That's what Portsmouth has done. They have different release times, but they all start at the same time.
I just looked up, Portsmouth doesn't start at the same time. They're between 8 and 8:30 for their schools. And Oyster River is the same thing. Elementary school starts later than middle and high school does.
Okay, let's talk about that, sorry. But I mean,
I was
they're
curious
closer.
about the same thing.
because they had started, so I think that one thing that I have, and I agree that I've heard the same concern of having them all together, and I've also heard from districts that have successfully, for whatever reason, had mixes of older and younger students and had it be successful. It would certainly have to be planned, but it's something that every administrator basically said, yeah, I would love for nobody to have to go before fill in the blank and nobody to have to start after fill in the blank. And so the only way that you get that flexibility is if you're able to get as close as you can to universal. And so one of the things we said is we think it's cost prohibitive in general, but we don't entirely know. And so I don't like making decisions on a hunch of, I think it's going to cost me. I would love to have better information to just know, and then we can see for the other reasons if we wanted to go that route, that it would give us that. But there are some that have tried to get as close as they can to a universal, so even if they modified it slightly for logistics, I think that, I know that at one end, it was either a little bit different, either start or end, but still not before 8.
Yeah, there has to be some difference because you can't drop everybody off at the same time. Because they're in different places. So that's all.
There may
You're
still
right,
be one
Jan.
bus or, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it's still a universal pickup, but then
Right.
it's
So
different.
it's gonna be 8, 10, whatever.
All right, let's go ahead and vote. For Ms. Daniels, the motion is to authorize the superintendent to pursue information gathering on a universal bus route in the amount of approximately $4,000.
Daniels, yes.
Eckhoff, yes?
Glover, yes.
Run, yes.
Peters, yes.
Slow down, sorry. Attention
The yes is, it's not a yes, you can't handle it. So, staying, Peter.
Limited skill.
All right. Here's the vote.
I vote yes.
Okay.
Drop your yes.
Okay, yes.
Beam, yes.
Fritz, no.
Well, yeah.
That's.
Likely.
And from that, we'll move into an update on the weighted voting process.
All right, so we're gonna turn this over to Steve as he has become more knowledgeable in the weighted vote after numerous conversations with various legal people and legal consults, and then also the school board association, so.
Yeah, real quick, before the last meeting, we were advised to just check all the spreadsheets and check all the stuff. And actually over April vacation, Christine and I updated some stuff and Amy and I updated some stuff. We wanted to make sure we were okay. So we, talked to our attorney. Our attorney had as I wrote, it was written in board notes, had a little delay. So we called the School Boards Association. School Boards Association Executive Director, who used to be their legal counsel,
offered us a different interpretation that wasn't in existence, so we revised everything then, if you remember. And then our attorney got back to us like the next day. And I explained to the attorney that we had a conflicting interpretation from School Boards Association and our attorney, which isn't a fun place to be in. But what was fortuitous was the next day, they had the Council of School Attorneys. The Council of School Attorneys is really cool. It's all the, the professional school attorneys get together monthly and they talk about this stuff. It's very unique to New Hampshire, like Massachusetts doesn't have a COSA thing. We do, I really like that. So it was fortuitous that they put this topic on the agenda for all the attorneys in New Hampshire to discuss. And we have now a universal, everybody, School Boards Association. So we did this work, SAU 39. We set this, we now have it. And so the executive director of the School Boards Association agrees with the School Board Council, which agrees with our council and the Council of School Attorneys, which was included in, which goes back to what was it, representative voting is the 3 votes per board. And then the weighted voted is 3 plus the weighted based on enrollment. So what was happening was perfect. We now have it in perpetuity. The other thing is Mr. Fritz asked about if you make one weighted vote, you saw that interpretation there. If you want a weighted vote, it's not like you do it now, it stays, you have to do it every time. That was based on our attorney, so I appreciate your grace. I knew that, you said that to me, but hey, what the heck, it's all good.
So do it have to be invoked per vote, if it's going to be invoked at all? It has to be
Yes.
before the vote, somebody says, I'd like this to be weighted.
For this topic, and then you're gonna do it again for another topic.
Okay.
It doesn't hold you.
And we have to vote everyone has to vote that it will be weighted. And then it's weighted.
Correct. So thank you for your patience and your grace. We have the document, one board member requested that document was provided, it's in perpetuity. We now have consistency throughout New Hampshire because of the work that you all.
To be fair, if anybody asks for.
There's more than one person to have that spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're better at it than me.
So, and just for sanity purposes, we don't have to do that exercise every single vote. So just so you're not struggling, trying to do it. Where it really should be invoked is when it's close, like one vote tonight was close, all the others were.
I should have just let it go, and then at the end.
So, and then you can say, stop, let's go back, and I need to capture, just so you're not doing this every single meeting and struggling and.
You're my favorite right now.
It was good practice. I'm gonna get Mr. Fritz first and then Mr. Glover.
All right, so I just need help understanding one thing that was not in the board notes on C8. It starts off in all votes regarding SAU affairs, not in each vote, in all votes. And it goes on to describe the weighted voting system. So in all votes, to me, means that we should decide, like tonight, how we're going to have votes counted, whether they're counted by 7 or by 8 until the next town election in March. Otherwise, I feel like, one, it's silly, we won't pass it if we don't want to have weight anyway. And then second of all, to someone in the public, it's like you're changing the rules of the game to get the outcome you want, depending on who is voting in favor or against the motion. So from a legal perspective, did you get any guidance on what the word all means and why it doesn't say each, and how it would be different if Concord passed where it said each?
So the only thing that, they all agreed that this language was not great language. And we all had different interpretations. Right now, and there's no case law. This hasn't been, they said there is no cases to look at to see how these issues were settled. So I can only give you what the attorney and the council of school attorneys in New Hampshire provided as interpretation of C7 and C8, which is representative voted is 3, weighted voted is 3 plus, and if you want a weighted vote, it's for every single issue. I agree with you.
It's for each issue.
For each vote. And I agree with you that this language is, and they all agree that this language from an RSA is not strong. And maybe a representative can clean it, but it's a little funky, but we do have a single interpretation now from all attorneys involved.
Okay.
Yeah, so two things. One's a question, which is, so the practical result is each board has 3 votes. There's 9 votes total.
Yes.
The proportionate share of the membership.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if all 7 members, and so even were present, we have 1/7.
That is correct.
If one member from some meetings was present at 3, just have one person.
That is correct.
And then 2 is to kind of to Stephen's point. Not all decisions we make here are within the authority and jurisdiction of this board. It is limited authority, fire the superintendent, set the salaries of the employees and set and establish a budget. Basically it. So now, if we choose to spend SAU money doing a study, that probably would fall under the adopting our minutes, because it's in our own consent agenda, probably falls under our ambit, but whether we send policies down to the other boards or not, probably not needed, because that's just something we do to try to work together to exchange information in a convenient forum. That's not an SAU board function by statute. So there's a lot that we can talk about and maybe decide on that is not even worthwhile because it's not required to have that weighted vote.
I had a question. We passed a policy that might be impacted by this. Do we have work now to do in the policy committee with this?
I think we are, it's how the extension, and I think that's just the extension piece for both types of votes. So I think we're.
And just to add to that, the counsel that we got at the time was, we have to have that in our policy in order to allow an extension to not count towards the 3 votes for.
Okay.
And so we modified that for our policy committee and adopted it in all 3 of our boards, which now if one member of Sohegan objects or abstains, I apologize, the other 6 are entitled to the 3 votes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is no vote tonight. This is just an FYI.
Yeah.
Just to update a little more as a request of the board chair, vice chair to provide this documentation.
I want to move that all of our votes until the March election are counted by weighted vote.
For a second.
I'll second it for discussion. Can we do that?
According to our attorneys, that you have to do it each vote for each time. We can get further counsel. We didn't ask them about a universal vote.
I don't want to have the ability to change the rules mid-game.
But I think we have to find out if that's, if it's statutory.
We'll do it, they can come back. Let's set fixed set of rules that we're gonna follow as a group, and if they have a problem, they can come back.
Yeah, but all those votes may be null and void, and we're gonna go back and redo
You
every.
recount them, you reweight them, they're already voted, you reweight them. And to Steve's point, I just don't want the ability to change the rules mid-game.
Here's Thomas Grudd and then Mr. O'Keefe.
For our curiosity, has anyone done the math and basically Amherst School Board on weighted voting wants to do anything, basically write out the rest of the boards?
That's why we aren't doing it that way.
Yeah.
So 2 things, we're not changing the rules mid-course because this is the way this board's operated since I've been on, and Ms. Facey before her, and Howard Brown, I think, was chair before you. So like, this has been well over 10 years, the way the board's operated. It was just a different interpretation before our last meeting that sought clarification and actually got it in writing. That's the only thing that's different. When we take a look at a weighted vote, and I remember Ms. Taylor, who wanted a weighted vote on an issue. I think, again, going back to the trust piece, the 17 of us are here to work collaboratively on all issues with regards to the SAU. We may disagree. Yes, that's fine. It's healthy. It's warranted and it should be expected across all of us. But then to discount a portion of this board because of the weighting structure, I think it really throws in the face of all those members that are on, specifically Mount Vernon, that should be an equal partner in all conversations here. We are a junior community in this cooperative and in this SAU. But the respect that we give to the town of Mount Vernon of being an equal partner is something that we should never, ever sway away from. As long as I'm here as a Mount Vernon representative, I'm sure Mr. Eckhoff would probably agree, and Mr. Amber, and Mr. Stokinger, and Sunny on the thing. The fairness and the equality of it is really what makes this work. Once we start getting into, hey, thank you very much, but we're not going to listen to that, it really falls apart quickly, and we might as well break up as an SAU with them.
And to the point, Greg, that somebody had made, I think I'm not opposed or for the idea of deciding one policy going forward, but I don't know that tonight's the night to do that because we only have, what is it, 11 or 12 of us present. So he only has 3 board members total here tonight and we have 4. So you're going to have 13 members or 12 members make a decision for all 17. I think that's, again, trying to, you go back, we talked about potentially rigging the game, that would potentially do that now, where this 12 member body is making a decision that is gonna bind the rest of the 17 to it, or we're gonna have the same conversation a month from now, reverse the weighted voting for every vote, because we have more people here at that time. I feel that's a full board issue in my mind.
Okay, so we're already doing things tonight. We already passed a lot of the things tonight with this banquet here, so I don't understand why it wasn't an issue earlier,
Because this is gonna be binding, yeah, I guess those are binding too.
right?
I
Okay, then the other objection.
I gotta be honest, some of these conversations tonight are killing me. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of time that, to me, it's wasted time. We have things that we can be discussing here. I feel that we have much more productivity with this. So I would let's call a vote on this and let's just move forward.
Okay, I want to finish responding to Steve's comments there, like, so. There's no disrespect to anybody, we're counting everyone's vote, it's not how you weight them, so. If you weight them by the weighted vote, by C8, right, you're doing it essentially by population of the district, which correlates closely to the amount of funding that goes into something. You just voted on an investigation for universal start times. That was broken down according to roughly the population in each district. So the non-weighted voting gives the members from Sohegan, from Mount Vernon, disproportionate voting rights over funds spent by the Amherst School District. If we go to a weighted system for everything, it's closer to 1 vote representing $1 of expenditure. For the SAU with limited power, I think it's far more fair, to use your own word, to stick with one or the other. And to be fair, my motion is to go to weighted voting, because I prefer that. But my overall preference is that we stick to one system. So if we don't want to pass the weighted one, I will then put a motion in to say we never use weighted voting between now and the March election.
And that we could not
Can't
do
use
that
this
because that would violate our policy. So we're not, we're not going to do that tonight. Steph, I think last comment, and if someone wants to call the vote, I won't force you to call the vote, but I think.
Yeah, I was gonna make one comment is. My concern, if you go weighted vote on everything, and you talk about population, you're talking about budgets and everything else. But when you do weighted voting, it takes out Sohegan's voice. It takes out Mount Vernon's voice, because Amherst will always win if you vote together. Every time. And that means Mount Vernon doesn't have to say anything. We can talk all we want, but when it comes to a vote, if we disagree with what's saying, we walk out, or at least with a representative vote, our votes at least count towards the overall. It's, you can't take out the voice of, because you have a higher population of students on every single.
Echo.
We're gonna go ahead and call the vote. I will say that. If we've used weighted voting since I've been around, it's not, you could count on one hand.
Weighted vote? I've never had a weighted vote.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we are consistent with using the
One
non-weighted.
request.
Yeah, so just to your point, we do keep it consistent
I've seen weighted voting.
here.
Yeah. Well,
On the
I'm sitting up here. I've seen you guys do weighted voting.
Adam has a spreadsheet up there. one.
Yeah, we haven't-
Weighted vote.
Yeah, like that's,
Representative voting though, I don't know if it was weighted, I think
It
it was
was
representative to see.
weighted vote a couple of years ago, the Amherst School Board, we all abstained. That then threw things into a tizzy because our abstention killed the motion. And that's what,
Is that weighted or representative?
So that's,
maybe,
I think it's
I guess we're getting into the minutia here.
Yeah.
We have a call for a vote. Why don't you-
my point just was, yeah, we call for the vote. Let's go ahead and vote then. Ms. Daniels?
Daniels, yes.
So, so we're voting on, if we vote yes, that means we're gonna do weighted voting on everything. Okay,
Oh, no.
Cameron,
Ms. Daniels, did you misunderstand the motion?
I did, yes. Can you, I apologize. I would not like to do weighted voting. So Daniels, no.
We have Mr. Amber and Ms. Daniels, who you're not. He's gonna just stop it if we needed it. Okay, Mr. Echo.
No.
Word no.
Run, no.
Stover, no.
Peters, no.
Gothier, no, sorry.
Steve, no.
It's yes.
White, no.
Okay, we don't need a motion on any other parts of that memo, so let's move on to.
Well, I promise to make a motion, so I won't make the motion, but I'd like a gentleman's agreement that we don't have any weighted voting this year.
Okay, so we're not gonna make a gentleman's agreement again,
Okay.
per se.
All right.
But. Noted. The board discussion on personnel.
Yeah, thank you. So we're gonna have a non-public this afternoon or this evening. We'll talk a little bit about non-union employee compensation and SAU employee compensation. But in public, I want to update people that we will be posting for the communications coordinator position on May 24th. And we're hoping to have a start time of that position in June. Start that process May 24th before Memorial Day weekend and put it up, and I just want to give people an update there. Thank you.
Perfect. The calendar, SAU 24-25, there's a budget calendar and a board meeting calendar.
Yeah, so, the FY 26 budget calendar is complete. It's similar to how it's looked in the past, with a draft schedule, board meeting schedule. I did schedule the finance committees all on Tuesday, rotating. There may be some adjustments if those finance committees need to make any changes, but I wanted to get a draft out there because it typically helps folks to be able to plan ahead. And that's really it. I have the deliberative dates in there, public hearings.
And Amy,
Yeah.
can we state that these calendars are living documents that can be adjusted?
I already
And
marked my calendar, I'm sorry.
yeah, please put them in your calendars, and we will do our very best not to adjust them. But as we do the work, they could be adjusted. And then they could be expanded too, depending on what committees are meeting when, and so, but we did want to get this and the summer retreats into people's hands as early as possible. So thanks, Amy, thanks, Chelsea, and all the others that put this together. If there are questions, you can email Chelsea or myself around calendar, or Amy around.
Yeah, and we'll do our best. You can see it's a lot of dates, so, so we do our best not to, there's no overlaps, but did you have a conflict?
Well, my question, March 13th, so that's Thursday after March voting Tuesday. Can we have a meeting that close seating a new board? Doesn't there is a certain number of days
It would be
clearance
an
with the
existing
voters? So not the person who's just voted in?
Right.
Well, I'm not comfortable with that. We gotta
So
talk about
that
that.
was,
in the meeting.
That was a problem for us in the Mount Vernon board.
Yeah, we're gonna talk. about
Well,
We do
I'll
the
send
three-day
it.
okay,
meeting.
we'll take a look at it. It's not that big of a
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
We'll
I'll send
adjust
you
the
the
schedule
And
and,
that's not me, that's Mike and Chelsea.
yeah, so we'll.
Send you an email.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
you can throw it on the bus. Do that all night.
Yeah, so we were just trying to get some documents, in people's hands so they can start to plan. And, we know you're all busy. We know we wanted to be able to review this over the summer. If you come to my office, you will just see a series of calendars in my office because SU 39 in the 3 districts, we all know are complicated, but it's time consuming and it's not as efficient as any of us would like it. So I always have aspirations to make it more efficient. We'll continue with that. If you have any questions around the calendar, please email me and we'll make some adjustments. There's no conspiracy theories about scheduling meetings to try to put things on the agenda to get things through. So we'll go from there.
Did I just ask that you put August on here too?
Yeah.
I just see it starts in September, but we can have August on there too.
Yeah, we're hoping to, our August is not scheduled. Yeah, that's the reason. So we'll get there. So,
All right, so then moving on to the SAU goals, I did hear from a few of you. And I put, as you sent me notes, I put them into the, SAU goals 24-25. At the very bottom, you'll see there's like additional notes from members. Those are. No, it's a Google Doc that was, it is, you can access it.
You can have.
No,
So it's a problem, like,
So it's a little, if you're in the Trello for May 23rd, you'll see SEU board goals and it's under description. Or Ms. Grund says you can access it from board notes as well.
So I just have a question.
Yes,
So I saw the original recommendations and then the way that you have this, are these just, they would be adding detail to the
or
goal?
replacing or reorganizing it. We don't need to have this many words unless we want to. Someone had asked if we, what's the point of our having goals? So these are our goals for what the work that we want to accomplish as a body versus the superintendent goals that he has already shared with us that we'll think about when we evaluate him again. So down below at the very bottom in red, those thoughts line up with the framework for success. I don't know if you want to grab one or more of those and move them up. The framework goals that we have listed in here, that's just a copy paste. So we wouldn't change those unless we're going to go work on the framework of progress, which we're not going to do tonight. You could make that a goal to assist the superintendent with the framework for progress, but right now, the goal that we were suggesting is that we support and guide the superintendent in executing the framework for progress across districts. And I think it was brought up last month that some of these goals are not necessarily measurable, which obviously doesn't make them the most concrete and best goals. Just a couple things that I heard. One piece of feedback was that that maybe we should discuss something about the goal related to the prompt action when hiring professional staff. And maybe come up with a defined method that balances the need to act quickly, but doesn't also risk inadvertently violating right to know law. Like, so we wouldn't want to be on a group email necessarily talking amongst ourselves. So I don't do what you will with that. And also a suggestion was when we are considering the budget to also develop a standard for ourselves for evaluating whether the cost ratio or cost benefit of our budget lines up with the right amount of spending for our SAU. I'm not suggesting any method, but that might be some work we would do among ourselves, whether using comps, but maybe also looking at what we're obligated or what we desire to provide versus what the best cost value is for those items. Okay, and then again, in red, there are some other thoughts about making the framework pieces measurable. So I don't know that we could do all of these things, but those are some things for you to think about. Ideally, we would choose, 3-ish things that are important to this body in between now and the end of February next year, that we'd like to be able to look back and see whether we did the work we wanted to do or not. That's our purpose. I'm not married to anything, but at the same time, if you tell me at the end of this evening that we're pushing board goals to August, I'm going to say then we don't need board goals. Because half of our year is over by then. Not that we're gonna do a ton of work in August, but there is committee work for the summer and things, so. I guess I just don't want to be voting on board goals in September or October, because I've seen that happen before and I don't understand that.
A lot of the goals that are written feel like it's just support for the framework, which personally I do support it. I think it's a kind of a back to basics, core principles, kind of a framework, which I really appreciate. So if we were to just have a motion that where we embrace that, if we say, yes, we support that, that would be sufficient because there's no metric, then there's not really a goal, it's something else. So I appreciate whoever said put the metrics on in the red writing. I think they're right. So that's my overall challenge. And I was struggling like, okay, what is a goal for us that is a unifying goal, something that can benefit all districts? And I came up with two, and I connected them to the framework of progress best I could. I'll just read the first one and see if that sparks any interest or discussion. Consistent with framework of progress goal 5, build and strengthen partnerships. We expect the superintendent to enable board members to help identify challenges and opportunities and to help develop solutions by providing all board members with administrative ideas and information as soon as practicable after administration conceives of ideas and receives information, especially when the solutions require board approval. This is coming from the experience of oftentimes, and if you've been on the board long enough, you have had the same experience where we receive final work product and are expected to approve it. Now, you could interpret what I'm saying as we don't trust the administration. That's not it at all. It's that we want to be, at least I would like to have the opportunity to contribute to the solution. But in order to do that, I have to be part of the brainstorm. I have to know what's on the cutting room floor. I got to be able to provide my input so that when the final work product comes in, it's got robust board support, or it gets killed all along the way and everybody knows why, or it gets modified. That's the process of developing the solution. I believe if we have the opportunity to embed ourselves into that process, that actually would make the administration jobs a lot easier. It wouldn't be carrying all the water all the time. That they could have more partnerships in the mix, and we could find better solutions, not better. We could find strong solutions for our community that respect the community needs, that respect the administration, the educational needs. And to me, that's been missing for as long as I've been paying attention, since approximately 2015. Talking to some OGs in town, it didn't used to be that way. Right, I understand. There used to be a lot of collaboration, and often between board members, faculty, administrators. There was a free flow in the democratic principles that is the ethos of Sauhegan. Somewhere along the way, that this proposal, this thought is an effort to build a partnership between board members and the administration so that we can help solve our challenges together.
But I'm wondering if that doesn't sound like more of a district level goal than a SAU level goal.
We make decisions here as well. So here's an example where this would come into play. At this board and all of the budget process, traditionally, boards are given visibility on the budget the same day as the general public. There's a lot of stuff that's gone on before that. Decisions have been made, certain things have been initially proposed, and maybe it's like, I don't know. Things get pulled out, things get put in, things get moved around. We don't have any visibility of any of that process. We don't know what's on the cutting. Maybe it's all justified. Maybe sometimes we would want to put some things in, or maybe split a difference. I don't really know because I haven't never had the opportunity to have that conversation. That's a really good example where this would become very effective, I think.
So you want more hands involved in supervising every aspect of what we're assigning the superintendent and his team to do. So you want to be involved, you want all of these board members to be able to sit in on every budget meeting while they're building the budget, and then you want us to review it after the fact. So we're going to review a budget we helped build.
No.
And to use that specific example, because that's what it sounds, I guess I'm not understanding what the end result of this is. It sounds like we're sitting in a lot more meetings with administration and faculty when that's what we tasked Mike with doing, and then presenting a budget to us. And then we go through and ask those questions and say, what was on the cutting floor? Because I know that maybe even verbatim, I've used those words before, but we have that ability in the 3 months from when they first presented to us in September, October, till when it's approved in November, December. So I guess, and I'm just focusing on that one example. I guess I'm just not sure what this goal accomplishes other than we just start to take over everyday admin duties, which I'm not really paid for that, so we can expand our budget and have a conversation, but I don't know if we qualify for that either.
I would not envision us being at that level of the day to day. Here's what this framework. Mike and his team are doing their budget stuff. They're like, okay, here's maybe our internal draft one. Send it to us. What do you guys think? Here's our priorities. Here's kind of what we're thinking. We're not really sure about this. Do you guys have any feedback?
But don't they do that when we,
Yeah,
in October?
that's- that's
Amy,
what
what's your
I'm wondering
calendar?
How that's different than draft one.
I believe that is draft one. This would be pre-draft.
Let's make a motion to accept the goals as written.
They're not written.
Yeah, they're,
There was the original proposal.
yeah, but then there's red line version underneath it.
So what's your motion?
To accept the board goals that were presented to us at the previous meeting.
Is there a second? Not yet. I think there may not be a second because we had agreed to let people put their input into it.
So, if I may,
Yeah.
Andrew, I agree with you. I think the content on page 1 of our notes is sort of the nature of what this body is designed to actually do, based on some people in this room's interpretation. And when we take a look at the framework goals, that's something that each one of the 3 individual boards have adopted. To say that this is the framework of success from our superintendent, this is his focus, this is what he's doing, and this board has quote unquote the oversight of it. So I think that's an absolute appropriate goal for the spot. We are not going to hire a new superintendent this year. And, I don't see anything happening there. So I don't see that really being in there, but, if we're going to be hiring and bringing some additional staff on board, that's great, but I don't think that's a goal for us. So I think from my perspective that we can actually take that out. Fixing salaries and benefits, like that's just a administrative task of this body. So again, I don't really see that as a goal. Adopting a budget for the expenses, again, just an administrative task. When I think of goals for this body, I think of 3 things that we should focus on, no more, because if we do, things get very complicated and oh my God, there's goal 18.2 versus goal 1. So 3 things. And if we include framework of success as being our first goal, to adopt, implement, and use as our guiding principle this year, the framework goals, the framework of success. Then goal number 2 and goal number 3, from my perspective, should be around communication across all 3 boards and the community. And then the third and final goal is to create an encouraging environment for our employees so they feel comfortable working with inside the SAU or some sort of version of that. Because anything beyond that, I think belongs at the individual board meetings. It's just my perspective. Fostering a community of not learners, because that's against the middle school, right? Just doing something at the SAU, encourage, really solid participation and working with our superintendent to encourage that.
I agree with those goals, so.
There should be some other goal on cost, right? Something to do with showing that we're part of an SAU that is spending money wisely, productively, and in support of all 3 districts. There should be something about cost, taxpayers.
I think it's part of that communication.
Well, even if, I don't want to communicate what we're doing and say, oh, look, here's a new car. I want to say, here's a new car, it costs this much, right? Without the car, you would have been stuck with twice the bill. So something needs to be done to show that. We also need these graphs showing that, in New Hampshire, the dominant overhead cost is dominating the overall increase in costs of schools. So I think we have a good chance to show that we're part of a lean, effective machine that is providing high quality performance at a reasonable cost.
Would you be amenable, Mr. O'Keefe, to a 4th goal around the budget that we?
I'm just giving ideas, right? So we're still in the brainstorming phase.
So I did like those 3. And I do think communication is something that we routinely talk about, making sure that the public knows what we're doing, but I think also making sure that we all know what each other's boards are doing so that we're working in a collaborative way, especially where we have work that we do together within the framework and we're sending kids on to each other. But I actually did have a good conversation with Mr. Fritz the other day, talking about not even necessarily that we are, maybe just this year, a goal would be like kind of the ground level thing to just understand how, we evaluate costs when we're developing our budget. And it might not be that we need to change anything or that it needs to be a different cost, but just that we're understanding so that we can confidently come to the taxpayer that this budget, so we know how we did that. So those words that I just gave you are not the right ones for the goal. So I don't know if someone.
I guess I don't know what level we're going, what's the next step? I mean, because we're not just voting, Amy doesn't come with us on October 1st and say, here's the SAU budget, and we voted in that night. We're going through it on a board level individually, we're going through it as individual board members. So I guess I just don't understand what is the measurable achievement that we're looking to accomplish? Like, what's that next step? What's it? Are we gonna break down and every year we're gonna do individual studies to compare us to every SU district? I'm not opposed to it. I just don't know what that is other than lip service to say, we're gonna continue to do our job and look at the budget and look at the line items as we do every year. I guess I just don't know what that particular piece would be to analyze or evaluate costs that we're not already doing.
I think the point I'm trying to get to, Tom, is that we want to think, how do we think about cost? Is it cost per student, cost per employee, cost per district? And that's this year, all I want to do is figure out what is that, so we can communicate and say, look, SU 39 is complicated. It's not fair to compare it to this other SAU, compared to this SAU, or compared to this school arrangement. And that shows you how to think about our spending. And I agree with you that we're going to spend prudently, but there isn't a clean way to communicate that, our progress of success shows how to think about financial responsibility.
I do think those of you who were here last fall to work through the SAU budget, that we all came away pretty confident that we had a budget that was a good value to the taxpayer, that we were accomplishing what we needed to do for the SAU, and that we could defend the dollars that were spent. I think what Mr. Fritz was trying to say is like, how do we know we did that? Like, we know it because we worked on it, but can we come up with a sentence that allows us then to communicate to the taxpayers, you can trust this budget, like, because we know we put the work into it, other than just trust us, but I don't know if that is something that the rest of you are interested in understanding better, or.
So what I think I hear is that the goal, it sounds like, would be that we try to come to an agreement on how we appropriately both, I feel like we have a pretty good understanding, but then we decide what's the way we want to communicate that. How do we shift the value buckets? And what are we using to compare against? Because I agree with you. A lot of times we're like, well, but you can't because we're broken up. You can't say, a pre-K through 12 is not the same as ours. That's just this and just that. So there are a lot of, and you can't use cost per pupil because the state itself says, don't freaking use cost per pupil. That's not what this is for. And so it's like, well, what do you use? So it's saying, try to come up with some form of communicating the value that don't just say what you can't use, well, then what do you use?
Exactly.
That's really what I think is as a unified body deciding together, what do we want our messaging to be and how do we communicate that? Because we do an awful lot of don't use this, don't use that, but then what do we want to use?
Yeah.
Okay.
Someone give us a sentence.
Can I just ask, are you talking about the SAU budget or
That's
just
all we have.
SAU budget.
But the SAU budget isn't tied to cost per pupil.
No, that's you saying that didn't make sense.
No, we can't.
We're saying, how do we think about SAU budgets? How do we show people that we're spending it? Or no one currently has the answer. I think the goal should be to get the answer by the end of the year, and we have an answer.
With the assumption that we believe we're doing it.
Right.
Yes.
But then we decide on what is the consistent way to communicate that message of.
Cost per district, is it cost per employee, is it number of rooms on the brick school, height of school, what, I don't know. We gotta figure out what is it so we can stick our foot in the sand and say, this is the right way to think about it, and we're doing above average, we're above average efficiency in our SAU.
And with lack of a metric, with no way to measure,
Yeah.
and how do you measure?
So again, I really loved what Mr. O'Keefe had for the first three. Is there a sentence to include this, or is this just something that we want to be cognizant of as we go into budget process?
I don't even know how to enter the budget process. If I don't know what I'm trying to judge it against. I don't know if I just say, well, it's lower than last year, but I don't know if last year was bloated, if it was on a efficient budget, we need more funding, do things that we didn't do well. I don't even look at budget season if I don't know what I'm trying to measure it against. Where's the gold standard to say, hey, we're doing better than we thought, or we're doing worse than we thought?
So Mount Vernon's board has a goal that is to get the budget passed. So I think, because there is the default budget in our case, I don't think that applies here, but simply, if the public doesn't accept your budget, you didn't do a good job. It's the measure that we're using on the Mount Vernon board.
Here, we
That's
just,
a you-
we just.
get
It doesn't get voted on, right? It doesn't apply. I'm just giving you an example of something that made sense to me on our board.
And just to be clear, for the people who work really hard and are sitting here at this table, none of it had to do with not thinking that we are doing this. It was like and maybe honestly, we just need a little bit more education about how it is developed, not that you don't educate us ad nauseum. And I feel very confident and anyone who's heard me around town, groups praising the superintendent, praising Ms. Vasey's work of how the SAU is organized, how our money is spent. I'm as cheap as they come. I'm really comfortable with what we do at the SAU. I think when we were talking about goals, more that like we all understand how we arrive at those things. And maybe the goal is more that we understand it right now so that we can communicate it. And if we can't come to a good goal right now, it might be something that we think more about as we come through the budget season and maybe be better prepared to comment on it next round of board goals. Because I sensing that we're not coming to anything that we can.
I think we can. I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to paste this quick snapshot to Google Doc, but I was denied access. So,
Oh,
Yeah, my Mac won't give me edit access.
yeah, it's saying I have to. We want to get.
What about simply a unified standing and messaging, you know? Really, it's not the situation.
I was writing, adopt the budget as fiscally responsible. One underneath is establish measurement tools to communicate to the public about the SAU budget. Yeah, very,
Stephen O'Keefe, you're an editor.
Yeah, so I'm in there now. Thank you.
It's not.
Yeah, no, I have. Good. Dang, I think I still work here.
It says I shared to you, but I couldn't email it to you.
This is what I wrote, and, I can email it to you. This is just going off of our conversation. The first one being to support the superintendent in the implementation of his framework for success. We can call it the framework for progress, because I know that's what you're. To keep communication with our various community members at the forefront of all board actions. Support a welcoming environment for all SAU employees that acknowledges their efforts to support our school system. And 4, to continue to serve as fiscal stewards for all of our taxpayers and work within all of the functions of our current process and encourage public participation in our annual budgetary process. So clearly that last one's very wordy, but we can work. That's what I'm capturing, Greg. Is that
Not bad, yeah.
so something along those lines, and we can wordsmith John if you want to add in, because you're good at that. To sort of reframe that number 4. I pasted into the Google Doc real fast, but it's still.
Not like Johnny either, I don't know.
Did you just email it?
I tried to change it, something's funky with it, I think whoever created it originally, it's a
Okay.
little funny, but if you email me those, I'll add it into it.
Send it to you right now.
I've got the. Oh no, I don't. She's in it. I think Shannon cut me out.
I think Shannon just created, and she like sent it to us to see originally, then she ended it to you, so. What permission this?
Personal email. There we go. I just sent it to you, Mike. If you want to just copy that in there so everyone can see it.
It does have you as a editor now. Technology.
Microsoft is funding. But it wants to let you do and not do always.
Cool.
So. Is there wish to work further on that or to accept? Oh, Steven's in.
I'm in. There we go.
And does that encompass what you were
I'm
trying
fine
to
with that. I'm fine with accepting Stevens.
I want everyone to see it first, and then you gotta reword some
It just
stuff.
pops to the top, 24-25. So the very top of our board goal, 24-25 now is Mr. O'Keefe's ideas.
And clearly the structure of the format there, because they didn't.
If we kind of like these, we want to make a motion, we could finish our
I
discussion.
have one more to add. Or to add to. Put out into the ether. My first one was really about communication. It's really about moving communication between administration and board members. Enable us to be part of the solution, making progress. Not sure where people land on that. I understand you're hearing it for the first time. Get that. Whether it's a formal goal or it's a practice we choose to follow, I'd like to continue working towards that in conjunction with the administration, because I know they have their own limitations, so do we. So there's going to be a sweet spot somewhere where I think that we could really find some synergy and some harmony. The next one is really about due diligence. I've written it as such, consistent with Framework of Progress Goal 6, improve facilities to reflect the values of our community. We expect the superintendent to support and encourage studying what it would take to welcome 7th and 8th grades into the Sauhegan Cooperative School District and onto the Sauhegan campus as a means to address educational space needs, both at the Amherst School District and the Mount Vernon School District, to build and strengthen partnerships consistent with Goal 5 between staff and students for 2 years prior to the students building a permanent high school transcript, and to help bring equity to SAU board decision-making in the event weighted voting is implemented.
Ms. Grund?
I'm just gonna say that, Sauhegan did make a motion that says we are not pursuing this unless another board comes to us, which they have not done yet.
I know.
So therefore not.
I don't think that goal is. I can't speak for the board, but I don't think the rest of the board is interested in entertaining that. I don't know.
Well, it's one connective tissue, educational space. We all have, I know Amherst clearly has had has educational space constraints, needs. It's been difficult to, so far, to implement a solution. I know Mount Vernon is on the, starting to have their space concerns, and they've commissioned some work to address those concerns. And so we have, and so Egan has an educational space available. That could potentially be used. It would take.
I don't think that we can make that a board goal of this body tonight. I don't think that's a fair request.
Somebody could make a motion to make that a goal and we can vote on it, right? And then we could maybe put it to bed for this month.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the first 4 goals as written.
As read, the one.
As read by Stephen. Second.
Wait, but, okay. You guys are so fast.
I
We
think
have a first and a second on there. I would like.
John, you have access to that?
I don't have access to the internet right now.
As you can see it.
Just go through that one more time before we adopt it. Just want to.
Want me to read them aloud?
No, just make sure the context and structure is proper.
you want me to comment while we're doing that, or is that too much? I think.
I thought you were too.
Yeah, I've got it. I can see yours. I watched you edit. It was great fun. Yes, Mr. Chris?
John, you made 2 goals, I think. The first goal, no one's talked about that yet. I don't think that's a great goal for us. We can't control it. It's about us receiving information. So I completely agree that we want to do a better job of being part of those teams. So the goal could be changed to say, we'll participate more, but it can't be that we're going to receive information, because how do I get better at receiving emails? I'm pretty good at that right now.
You would know. It would be easy to measure.
But I can control it. I'm not an active,
Correct.
so it's not my goal, you know? I'm phrasing that. It could be reworded to say, we will actively request for something. We will actively try to be involved. We will actively request information. But we can't actively receive information.
hard to ask a question when you don't know what question to ask.
I know, that's exactly the rub of understanding.
Yeah.
I think we can't stop that.
You know, there's.
Thank you, I see that. So you all have access, the document now, you don't have access?
So I can't get it, it's fine, just read it. I
Peter,
agree with Tom, we're
You're
spending a ton of time tonight.
yeah,
On something we're probably not gonna revisit.
no, and
I hate to be snippy, but we've wasted a ton of time tonight. This what makes these meetings kind of painful to go through, because we've been here for 2 hours and 10 minutes, and we still got some really important stuff to discuss about people and salaries and all that kind of stuff.
Still have a schedule. I know you guys don't like meeting apparently, but
okay,
we're on
let's-
schedule.
in the interest of, let's just stick to the motion on the floor. 1 second.
Okay.
I just want to remind everyone that I did request last month that people work on this, and very few people did. So that's why we had to spend a little bit of time tonight, because what Shannon and I that came up with wasn't quite board goal ready. And we are a 17-person board. It's not really fair to ask 3 of us to carry the work. So thank you for Mr. Eckhoff for your consideration that we did need a minute to get this ready. I think what Mr. O'Keefe has put together sums up a lot of what we agree we want to work on. The motion's on the table. Don't know that we need further discussion on this motion.
I have one question.
Sorry, I forgot about you.
So while I'm very comfortable with these and I think they're appropriate, and I think that it goes from being just do your jobs to some more specific things we can actually work on. But the one thing that was in red and that I thought that we would be discussing tonight was if we want to collectively try to come up with some metrics that we can all agree on for our scoreboards and such. And I think that would be appropriate to be something that as a collective that we say, what are the measurements we want to use? Because we can do it individually as well, to be sure, because some things are age appropriate. Like you're not gonna have SAT scores for, the kids in the Amherst district. However, I do think that having some of being able to talk about and decide upon what metrics we want to use would be appropriate.
So I agree. I think that's more though in the agenda column. So we can ask that be added to an agenda maybe in September or October to go ahead and facilitate a conversation around that topic. Not necessarily.
Well, but I feel like it would be an offshoot of number 1, where we supported wholesale.
Yeah.
But then as part of our goal is how do we help to decide upon the metrics that we want to use
Yeah.
to measure?
Because that could be like a component or tied directly into, the support of the framework of progress.
Exactly. So I just feel like it's an extra sentence to put it into number 1. That's all. That's my question recommendation. Number 1 is just to work together to come up with metrics that we can all, measure the work by.
And it may be as simple as approving some metrics, because with the dashboard that the superintendent's been working on, some of that work is being tied to the framework for progress. If you've gotten a look at that,
Yeah.
certain scores, test scores.
Yeah,
and things
exactly.
like that.
And so, but I think that there were several of them in the comments that came back, and it's, if you have SMART goals, right, they have to be measurable for being smart. And so saying, hey, as a collective body, how do we decide upon the things that we all stand behind and go, these are, again, it goes back to, here's everything you shouldn't use, well, here's what we want you to use, here's what you can use. So I do think it's appropriate, and I think that to me is the only modification I would think that I would like to see beyond the 4 that we have right now on the table.
So to provide the community with a structure to measure the success of the goals.
Sure.
But you're typing that, I'll just add, I like what you're saying. But that's, to me, that's a board member and administrative partnership. It's kind of what I was trying to say. Like, we would be overstepping, I think, and maybe outside of our lane, just to come up with the metrics without a discussion with the administration, who, they're highly valued in that arena. And
It might even be more
So-
like provide feedback on metrics.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know. I mean,
I don't have
if you,
specific, I
not to
just
say
feel like,
that any one board member couldn't come up with an amazing metric that we could measure that no one else has thought of, that's for sure possible. I'm not saying they have all the answers. Together, we have the best answers we can.
So my thoughts are, if Mike's doing a good job on something, let us know so we can communicate with the public. Like, we're the ones that public looks to and voted for. So like, help the SAU communicate their excellence, help us understand that the metrics. Just say, we try hard, it's not.
You know, connecting budget proposals to the framework. This endeavor will help us achieve literacy, let's just say, for example, because we're hoping it will yield the following results. Well, now, bam, we have some metrics we can start to explore. Presumably.
That's right.
Yeah, so I guess to be the whale in the water here, I guess, not mixing. I'm all for metrics. I think we need metrics to measure, and we talked a little bit about it at the Amherst district, at the Amherst School Board meeting last time. I don't know, and I think somebody already alluded to it. I don't know that this body is gonna be able to determine what metrics are appropriate for kids pre-K or K through 8. The needs are so vastly different, like so literacy, for example. Phonological awareness is one of the #1 indicators as to whether or not a kid is going to be able to read proficiently. And by read, I'm talking simply decode, not even talking about the comprehension piece. But if a kid doesn't have that by 2nd grade, like you're not going to measure that in that metric and the things that are going to assess and evaluate whether or not a kid has phonological awareness or right, isn't going to be in a South. It's not going to be like a broad, it's just not going to be applicable. It's not going to be applicable to middle school, really. So I feel like it's more, I'm sorry, Steve.
That's my fault. We have designed under Mike's work to present data to the individual.
And that's why I
Grade
think,
4, grade 8, grade 6, grade 12. Exit, comprehensive data for exits to the individual boards,
and that's why I think it's
not
appropriate.
this board.
Right, and that's why I think it's appropriate at the individual boards. Now, I get that we need kind of like connective tissue, and I think that is the framework of progress. And then, right, when Tom or Peter or Stephanie report out, they can say, hey, listen, here are the metrics that we use in our board, and here's how our students are doing. Right, because it is important, right? We feed into Sauhegan. We all feed into Sauhegan, right? Like, hey, one of our metrics that we decided is appropriate is whatever score you want to say. It's not where we want it to be. Well, is there a foundational skill that we miss? And then maybe that then gets fed back down to Amherst or in Mount Vernon, and we say, okay, how did our students do on that particular foundational skill based on the metrics that we're using? I don't know, maybe I'm talking too much. Maybe I don't-
no, but it is fair to say that it is gonna be different by age, and that's why I said like an
Yeah.
SAT score is appropriate for a high schooler, but it's not appropriate for our groups that we cover. So there would be the same kind of thing at an individual board level, but I think that overall, you have to tell the story of how the SAU doing.
I mean, I think that to go back to somebody's point 15 minutes ago, we can only set goals for ourselves of things we can do, but we can be familiar with the dashboard. We can be familiar with how our individual boards are doing. We can be willing to dig into superintendent reports on the issues or whatever. But the goal for us should be a little bit lighter than some of where we just got into the weeds.
Lance, do you want to read recommendation?
Yeah, I think where you're going, Christy, is right in the sense that, well, he's helping on that. The actual measurement, the actual work getting done to improve literacy, mathematics, and supporting the superintendent, the principal, that's the work of each board. We want to say as an SAU board is that we support encouraging that and support each of the boards implementing that work. And I think that's where that first goal is coming from, saying, do we have the tools there to say, are we measuring it, to make sure we're showing that we're measuring it but it's really the work to be done is at the board.
Some work. Good. Other, improved instructional time, something we commonly share. We try to get as unified a calendar, school calendar as we can. If we're looking to recuperate some instructional time vis-a-vis our calendar, how many holidays there are, how much time off there is from school under the baseline framework, we're gonna start picking at that. That is a way we can support the framework of progress together and here at this level for efficiency purpose. So we don't have to have 4 conversations on it. We can have a unified conversation. Is an example where we could support the framework here.
And that is covered in these goals. which
Exactly.
Are
That's
nearly
what I'm saying.
finished, so let's go ahead and just read out the one that we played with, and do we have a motion on the table yet?
No, Andrew made the motion.
Andrew's gonna be ready. So the wordsmithing here is to support the superintendent and the implication of his framework for progress and provide the community with a mechanism to measure progress and celebrate success.
Implementation.
What did I say?
Instead of implication.
No, it said implication.
Yeah, implementation, please.
Oh, no, I read this. You're right, it's the word that was typed. Not the word you meant. All right, I think that we're close enough to work that Mr. Klobuchar can now make his motion.
So I would like to move that we adopt the board goals as presented by Mr. Murphy.
It will shortly say implementation. A second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gothier. Ms. Daniel, oh, whoa, do we have any discussion? Ms. Daniels?
Daniels, yes.
Mr. Amber?
Echo, yes.
Glover, yes.
Run, yes.
Stover, yes.
Peters, yes.
Gothier, yes.
Bingo.
Fritz, yes.
Wait, yeah.
Did you get that? Did we need to? Okay,
Solid.
we're good to go. All right, so that was the
I just want to
last,
highlight,
yeah,
celebrate success
I love that.
in that first one.
But I love that we are moving in positive direction. With that, we move into public input 2 of 2. There is no one here. Is there anyone online? No one online, so I would accept a motion to move into non-public under RSA. We need the RSA, 91A:3, 2A and C, compensation and reputation. All
Second.
right, moved by Mr. Glover, second by Mr. Stupinger.
Yes.
Ms. Daniels. Motion. Yes.
He said yes before.
Okay, Ms. Daniels is yes, Mr. Glover is yes, Mr. Amber?
Amber.
Run, yes.
Stover, yes.
Peters, yes.
Gothier, yes.
Same yes.
Fritz, yes.
White, yes.
All right, we are moving into non-public.